up, guys? This is Coach Alder from 10th Planet Van Nuys, and today we're going to be going over the mascot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu moves. I'm talking about maybe the most recognizable move. You've seen it on Walker, Texas Ranger. You've even seen it on Lethal Weapon. Okay, we're talking about the triangle choke. Now, this choke is probably one of the more famous chokes from the early days. Dan Severn was caught by Hoist Gracie in it, and you still see it today used. You've seen it in movies, you've seen it in instructionals. Everybody's got a secret tip on it. Today I'm going to give you the basic, most fundamental secrets and tips on it that I could possibly dig up. This is going to be the just basic stuff you need to know about it so you can get started with this stuff, okay? And after I teach you this, and you drill it a few times, you'll be able to choke out your friends in your living room at your next UFC party, all right? So let's get started. What's up, Hulkamaniacs? Today we're going to go over the most masculine move ever to hit jiu-jitsu, and that's the triangle. It's masculine because you're working off your back. As we all know, real men pull guard, okay? Got my main man, Dimitri, over here, and we're going to show you how it's done. We're going to start from double wrist control, very basic position. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to push this through my legs and pull the other one across my body. Okay, so I push this through my legs, pull across my body. This will sort of break his posture. At the same time, my hips are going to go up. I'm going to throw my right leg over first and my left leg over that one. Okay, so to do that, I'd actually throw them up like this. Okay, from there, I'm going to pull this out and squeeze my legs together so he can't get his arm back through. One, I put the hand on the back of the head. Two, I grab shin control. From shin control, now I can open up my legs, putting the foot on the hip. If I'm too close to my opponent, what I'll do is I'll shoulder walk out a little bit to create some space so I can put my foot on the hip. From here, I'm going to move out towards 90 degrees and put this leg in front of my left leg. Okay, from there, I'm going to bite down, toes up, squeeze, and pull the head down. Okay, again, like with any choke, I like to use the 10-second rule. And what I do is I progressively squeeze, squeeze, squeeze for 10 seconds, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, until my opponent can't take anymore. It's like an anaconda squeeze. Okay? The secret I want to teach today, guys, is the secret of shoulder walking. Okay? Anybody, in my opinion, can pull off a triangle. People say, oh, I don't have a build for triangles. I don't feel like I have a great build for triangles either. But if you can get out from underneath your opponent, actually you don't need to have long legs. You have better angle. Okay, so angle and get out from underneath your opponent. I'll show that right now. Okay, so from here, the trick is shoulder walk out. Now everything just got a lot easier because I don't have to go over his back. All I have to do is go over his neck. And it's much easier to pull off that triangle. Okay, so remember, shoulder walk out from underneath your opponent. A good marker is if your leg goes straight up. If your leg is coming up like this, you're crowded, and it's going to be very difficult to finish the choke. Okay? So try and get it straight up and down. All the way through. Let's move angles this way. Okay, from here, wrist control, pull across, lock it up. Okay? Right goes over, left goes on top. Hand on the head, hand on the shin. Okay, shoulder walk out a little bit, put that shoulder or put that foot on the hip. Okay, leg goes in front of the knee, squeeze the legs together, move out towards 90, lock it in, toes pointed up, hands on the head, 10, 9, and get the tap. There's your basic triangle. I hope that helps you in your transformation to becoming a jiu-jitsu master. Thanks for stopping by. What's up, guys? Coach Alder here, and today we're going to be going over the most famous choke on the planet. I'm talking about the cop killer, the rear naked choke, or the mata leon, the lion killer. You've seen this thing in pro wrestling. It's the sleeper. It's actually not it's a variation of the sleeper hold, I should say. But this thing is probably my favorite choke on the planet. Puts people to sleep very quickly. It can protect you and your family from a lion if it ever attacked you in your house. It puts guys out to sleep in a matter of seconds. So let's get into it. So the Lobes is going to be in front of me. I'd probably have my hooks in, maybe not. We're going to come in, we're going to get the over-under, okay? As I get the over-under, my under always grabs my over, and I'm going to grab the top of my hand and wrist, okay, just like this, okay? Under the armpit, grab, and I want to clamp it nice and tight. Cheek to cheek as much as I can. I'm going to grab inside wrist control right here and pull that in. As soon as I get that, I come up, I slide down, and I use the little hook of my wrist to grab his chin. After I hit that, I'm going to put it on the other side of his shoulder. Once I anchor that here, now I can let go of the near wrist control, put the hand on the back of the shoulder, I'm going to push, and I'm going to anchor it even farther back. You can see him get erect and kind of tense up because it really puts a lot of pressure on his neck. So as I anchor this, I'm also pushing in with my wrist bone on his jaw, making it even tighter. Now, I'm going to push and create even more pressure. To relieve the pressure, he picks up his chin and puts it over my arm, thus creating a choke. Now, weave in, grab my bicep, chop the back of the neck, knuckles to the back of the head. I put my cheek to cheek. I'm going to push, squeeze, and pull. Okay? So the most common part, guys, that people mess up is they don't get this little hook of their wrist onto the jaw. Okay, so what I want you to do right now at home is I want you to feel right here, and you'll feel like a ball. Okay? There's a little divot or groove right before that ball. That's the part that's going to hook the chin. Okay? So it's going to grab that chin and it's going to force it to go wherever you want it to. So you have to use it as a weapon. Okay? So, one more time. We come with the over-under. Under grabs the over on top of the wrist and hand. Elbows in, pull it in tight, no space. Chest to the center of his back so that he can't move. From here, I'm going to grab the near wrist. You can grab it with a thumb or you can hook it without. Either way is fine. I'm going to reach up. I'm going to slide from the back of his jaw down until I hit that groove. Once I hit that groove, it catches. Okay? Once I catch, I bring it up to the shoulder. Okay? From here, I'm going to put the hand on the back like this. I'm going to push the shoulder in as I hook. Okay? I want to get as deep back here as possible. The deeper I get, the more pressure. Now I'm going to push my bone of my wrist into his jaw. See how that puts even more pressure on there? Creating as much pressure as I can. I push, okay, and he lifts up his chin for me. And he puts the choke in for me to relieve that neck crank pressure. You can get guys to tap to that neck crank. I'm not trying to get the neck crank, I'm trying to get the rear naked choke. Put the hand on the bicep, chop the neck, cheek to cheek. I push my head into his head as much as possible. I'm going to pull this in, I'm going to put my elbows together, I'm going to count backwards from 10, 9, 8, slowly squeezing like an anaconda, not pulsing or trying to blast as hard as I can for short amounts of time, okay? I want to increase the amount of squeeze progressively as I count down from 10, okay? That's the neck crank to the rear naked choke, and I hope it suits you just fine. Alright guys, now when you're talking about dominating position and getting a dominant choke, this is one of my favorites. Okay, we're talking about the head and arm choke. Now this choke is great because what you've already done is you've dominated your opponent by getting into a position of advantage. And from there you can take your time, use your weight, use your position to finish your opponent from the top. What's great about this is you don't have to use a lot of strength. You can actually use your weight and gravity being on top of the guy to come down and smash this guy. Okay, you've seen Brock Lesnar use this in the UFC. You've seen all the top guys, all the heavyweights love to use this move, even all the way down to the lightweights. It transitions to the back, it transitions to arm bars, it transitions to different locks and chokes. So this thing is not only versatile, but it's an amazing choke itself. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, so starting from the mount. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get one arm around the head, and I'm going to fish with the other arm. Get under the elbow, and I'm going to power up and go into head and armpit control. Okay? Right here, the whole joint is to keep his bicep pinned to his head. Okay? So I'm grabbing his armpit with my left hand, my right hand is grabbing his head, and my chest is smashing his face in. Okay? From here, I'm going to work my chin over, as far over as possible. Once I can get my chin pressed against his elbow and it's not going to move for a second, I use it as a placeholder, and then I move to grabbing his elbow with my hand, with my right hand. Okay, I'm going to move down, open up my neck, and I'm going to pop this sucker up. Boom. Okay, head to head, nice gable grip. I want to get the shoulder as low under his chin as possible here. Now I'm going to tripod up, shoot the knee across, and flatten out. I'm going to readjust, make this as tight as possible, and I'm going to start to walk to 90 degrees, put my chin over his eye, and squeeze. There's a lot of different ways to finish this choke. This is just one of them. None of them are right, none of them are wrong. They're all just different options. I find this one works out pretty well. It gets a very good angle on the artery, and it gets a ton of pressure when you move out to 90 degrees. Okay? So the trick to this one, guys, that I want to show is this head and arm control. Okay? So, actually, put it over here. So once I get this in here, okay, this is the control position right here. If I feel like I can get to this, I feel like I can finish at a high percentage. Okay, some guys will try to do it all in one fell swoop. It's trying to hit a home run. I'd rather hit singles and get base on balls and win that way much easier than trying to knock a ball out of the park every time. Okay? So from here, really work on your control from head and armpit control. Okay? So again, okay, from mount, arm around the head, fish, scoop the elbow with the inside of my elbow, and work to head and armpit control here. Okay? From there, I'm going to edge my chin over as much as possible, put my hand on his elbow, pop it open, and go head to head. Remember, lock your head next to his head. If you don't, he's just going to pull that arm right out. Okay? Make sure the head is locked into the head. Now I'm going to tighten this up as much as possible. If I can get the elbow or the shoulder underneath his neck, beautiful. If not, no big deal. Up, shoot across, flatten out. Now I'm going to make sure this is nice and tight. The inside of my elbow should be touching his neck. Okay? Now I'm going to start to walk out to 90 as far as I can, get it nice and tight, and then I squeeze. Okay? Just like anything else, I'm going to use the anaconda squeeze, counting backwards from 10, 9, 8, until I get the tap. Okay? There's the head and arm choke. I hope you use it wisely and not for purposes of evil.
Hey everyone, Tips here. It's my training partner Dimitri. I'm going to show you guys one of my favorite full guard moves. It's Kimura from full guard. It's a very fundamental move from full guard, and it's very high percentage, and you can use it at all levels of jiu-jitsu, all the way up to white belt to black belt. So here we go. Okay, so first I'm going to start with breaking Dimitri down. I like to put my hands under his wrist right here, pop my hips up, and then as I lower my hips, see how his hands stay in place? After that I'm going to swim inwards and bring my knees up. Okay, I'm going to grab his wrist, then I'm going to come through over his armpit and then grab my own wrist, just like that. I don't like to use thumbs, you can, but I always try not to use my thumbs. To me it's just a better grip, okay? After that I like to squeeze real tight, keep everything in, okay? and I'm gonna fall on my left hip. Just like that, all right? If you can, bring this right leg over his shoulders. Keeps really good balance, but also you can lock it up here too, which is just as good. I like to keep the elbow real close to my chest, and after that, I like to put downward pressure with this top elbow, okay? Then all I'm gonna do is try to touch his back and the head of his wrist, and I'll make him tap. Okay, once again, I'm gonna break Dimitri down. I'm gonna put my hands under his wrists and forearms, raise up my hips, and then when I lower my hips back to the mat, you can see how his arms stay up where I want them to stay. And after that, I'm gonna bring my knees to my chest, and that brings it down. Immediately, I'm gonna try to grab wrist control as fast as I can. Then this hand's gonna swim under his armpit, or over his armpit, sorry, and grab my wrist. I tend to not like to use my thumbs with this grip. To me, this feels stronger, so it's more of a preface thing. But you can try both ways, and then whatever way you like better, you should go with that one. All right. After that, I want to try to fall. The biggest mistake is when they try this move, they fall straight to the back, and then this is where you have a lot of problems with finishing and power. Okay. So as you come up, you grab the wrist, grab your own wrist. You come up. I want you to fall. Try to fall on your opposite hip, your left hip, or depends on the opposite side of the Kimura. Okay. From there, keep everything nice and tight. If it's out here, he has power. He's strong. Move your arm. Okay. But if you keep it real close to your body, this is where you have a lot of power. Try to move your arm now. Okay. After that, all you got to do is try to touch his back of the head.
What's up guys, Coach Lopes here with my partner Coach Tips today. Today we're going to go over guillotine from full guard. It's one of the most powerful chokes in no-gi jiu-jitsu, gi jiu-jitsu, and MMA. We're going to be going over it based off the last move you just saw, which was the hip bump sweep. So we're going to go off of that and add our guillotine to that transition. So what I'm doing is, I'm starting off in full guard here. Like I said, you're going off the previous move, so we're setting up our hip bump. Our opponent's going to posture up, and as soon as he postures up, I'm going to time that and sit up with him right here. But for whatever reason, he's keeping me from coming all the way up. So I'm not able to get my hips in. I'm not able to get him over into mount. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop my arm all the way around and get my, my forearm all the way on his throat on the other side right here. From here, I'm going to sit my hips out where my hand is at this point. Hips out. Now I have this space right here between my chest and his arm to slip my other arm in and grab a guillotine grip, which is just like this. Grabbing my pinky together right here, getting a nice solid grip. So my hand's around his neck. Grabbing my grip right here. Now, I'm flat on my butt. I need to get on the same side that I'm choking, so I need to get to my right hip. So I'm going to scoot my hips out right here. Lock up my full guard again. Sit up and squeeze. Get the tap. The most common mistake right here is guys are going to fall straight back. So they'll go for the hip bump, they'll get a nice tight grip right here, and then they'll fall straight back like this. And now there's a lot of space right here. I can see his neck. I want to eliminate that altogether. I don't want to see that at all. I have no pressure right there. So when I do get around, I really want to accentuate getting my hips out, grabbing, and then when I fall to my side. Same side that I have my choking arm on. So I want to make sure that I'm basically smashing his head on the same side, and then I can lock up my full guard and squeeze and finish. So again, starting off in full guard right here, I'm going to sit up, get my hips all the way up to him, wrap my arm around my neck, sit my hips back. Now like I just talked about, the biggest mistake is guys are going to fall straight back. So I want to make sure that I get to my right hip and that I put all the pressure on the top of his head. I don't want to see any space of his neck right here. I want to make sure I'm sitting up, my chest is over his back right here, and my arm and my shoulder is sagging on the back of his neck. Grabbing my guillotine grip, I'm going to fall to my right side right here. Now I can lock up my guard, squeeze, and finish. What's up guys, Coach Lopes here with my partner Coach Tips. Today we're going to go over a basic armbar from full guard. This is one of the moves that Ronda Rousey has finished 7 opponents with. She's been destroying people in MMA with it. This is something that's been a personal big part of my game as far as jiu-jitsu tournaments and MMA also. So this is something that I practice on a regular basis. It's something that works, at a low level and at a high level. So it's something that should always be practiced amongst all practitioners. So we're going to go over that today. So we're going to start out in full guard. My partner right here is going to be already broken down. I'm going to reach across and grab his tricep. And what I want to do is move it in the middle of my stomach. I want it in my belly button right here. And I want to be able to have good control over this. I'm keeping it pinned down. Nice grip right here. I'm going to grab the crown of his head to really keep him broken down at this point. From here, I'm going to bring my foot on his hip. So, foot on his hip on this side. What I'm going to do is use this and push off and bring this leg up to his shoulders here. So I kick myself out with the far leg that's on his hip and bring this up. And this leg on top is staying active, so it's keeping him broken down, ensuring that I can throw this leg over. So I'm still keeping control of his head right here. Now I'm going to switch to the opposite side and push his head away. Here, swing the leg over, chop down on the back of his neck. Right here, keeping tight grip, keeping my knees pinched, keeping my heels digging into his back to ensure that his posture is broken. Here, I grab the wrist and lift my hips up and finish. Most common mistake here is guys are going to cross their feet. It's one of the most common things you see done amongst all people doing arm bars is they like to cross the feet. I want to make sure that my feet are separate so I can get more pressure in breaking their posture down right from the start. So what that looks like is, again, starting from full guard here, reach across. I'm going to grab his tricep, move his elbow into the middle of my stomach. I'm going to grab the crown of his head and use both of these to keep him broken down. Now my foot here goes on his hip and my knee stays tight right here. It's not lazy right here. I don't want too much space. So I'm keeping my foot on his hip, keeping my knee, keeping the pressure down here. I'm going to use this foot on the hip to get my angle, kick out, and bring this leg up high. Now these two are working together to help keep this posture broken. Still holding the crown of his head, I'm going to swing around, push his head away from me, and swing around and chop. Now like I just talked about, the most common thing, people are going to cross their feet like this. There's too much space right here. Posture up. Right here, I'm going to get stacked, and I'm not going to be able to finish the move. So back down. So what I want is my feet are separate here, so I can keep my knees pinched, and I can put a lot of pressure on his neck right here. Now try posture. See, I can really keep him broken down with this. This is what I really want. This is the most important step right here. I want to make sure my knees are really tight, and that these heels are digging down into his back, into his neck, preventing him from posturing. Here, I grab his wrist, make sure his thumb is pointed up towards the ceiling, raise my hips, and finish. Starting off in full guard here, I'm going to reach under, grab his tricep, move his elbow into my stomach, right in the middle of my belly button. I'm going to grab the top of his head, place my foot on his hip, and keep this knee tight right here. I don't want too much space, otherwise he's going to posture up. Keeping my knee tight, keeping his posture broken, I'm going to kick off of this and get my angle out right here. This leg's up high, this knee is still staying pinched right here, and I'm still controlling his head. All these things are keeping his posture broken. Swing around to the side of his head, push his head away, swing around and chop right away. Again, like I said, don't cross your feet. Right here, keeping his posture broken, making sure these knees are pinching together and these heels are digging into his back and into his head to prevent his posture. I'm going to reach up to the wrist, grab right here, making sure the thumb is pointed towards the ceiling, raise my hips, and finish.
Hey everyone, Coach Beamer here from 10th Planet Van Nuys. Today we're going to be going over the Americana. You might have seen it in championship bout against John Jones and Vitor Belfort. Very effective, even at the highest levels. It's a fundamental move that everyone should have in their repertoire. Alright boys and girls, we're going to break down the Americana here. We're going to start off in side control, a very common position that the Americana is utilized from. So we're going to jump right into it. From basic side, you want to get in tight, you want to have a firm grip on it, you want to get good control. The first thing you want to do is you want to let go of the head and pin your right elbow right against his neck. So there's not much room for him to move around. At which point, your left hand cups his shoulder. So you have your right hand pinned against his neck. Your left hand will cup his shoulder and bring it down to the mat. Create some separation, something for him to think about. As soon as that happens, your right hand will fish for his forearm and you want to pin that against the mat. Once you have that, you figure four your arms together with a firm grip on his wrist, and a detail that is most often missed is bringing the elbow down to the belly button. You want to bring the elbow down to the belly button and elevate his elbow off of the mat, therefore creating a paintbrush motion with his knuckles against the mat. The most common mistake that people make when trying to finish the Americana is that they don't bring the elbow all the way down to its pinning point. So once they get the figure four arm lock, they tend to celebrate and think that this is a finish. As you can clearly see, the shoulder still allows a lot of flexibility at this point. What you want to do is pin this down against the mat and bring it as close to his hip or belly button as possible. And at that point, you elevate the elbow off of the mat and you get him to top. You can see the difference. So once again, from the top. From perfect side control, you want to be nice and tight. You want to get him nice underneath you. You want to release the head and pin your elbow against his neck. You want to pin his shoulder then down against the mat. You want to fish and bait his forearm and pin it down. At this point, you connect your arms to a figure four, and don't forget the key detail, drag it down to his hip, then finish.
What's up, guys? Coach Ryan here, 10 Planet Van Nuys. We're going to go over the straight ankle lock today. Straight ankle lock is the fundamental leg lock that anyone who ever wants to learn leg locks needs to learn and needs to know. It's kind of the gateway to all the fun, crazy stuff that you see the Husmal Paharases of the world and the Imenaris of the world doing. Straight ankle lock is, again, one of those moves that works at all levels. You'll see white belts doing it in tournaments because it is tournament legal for white belts, all the way up to black belts doing it. So, let's get into it. Alright guys, let's go over straight ankle lock. We're going to go from an open guard position. It's one of the basic fundamental places to hit it from. So here we go. For our entry, we're going to go into the open guard. We're going to step up. We're going to cup the knee. And we're going to windshield wipe and slide down to our side, still cupping the knee. Gives me total control of Beamer. From here, I'm going to pinch my knees. I'm going to take my hand back, bring it up just a little, and drive it behind his Achilles. Now, I'm going to turn it up so my thumb is facing the same way as his toes, which puts a lot of pressure on his Achilles. I'm going to grab, I'm going to pull it up, and I'm going to pinch my elbow. From here, it is super, super tight. That extra little detail to kill it, I'm going to look behind me. Alright, so let's break down some of the key details here. The biggest details for me is in how I grab the Achilles. A lot of guys will just grab here, all loose, and try to hit back, and you can see Coach Beamer's not doing anything. My 3 killer details to it is I turn my thumb, like I said earlier, up. That takes the unit and puts it right on his Achilles. From here, I'm lifting his whole body. I want to make it even tighter, so when I grip, I shrug up and I pull it in, eliminating all this space here. Again, even tighter. Got the tap. We're going to make it even more killer by taking our elbow here and pinching it. Now I have total control of his ankle and his Achilles. And then from there, I can bridge, and it does not take much. So, one more time. We're going to go through my entry, cupping the knee, stepping up, sliding to my side. I'm going to slide my hand back, drive it in, and turn it up. Thumb facing the same way as his toes. Grab, shrug, pinch. Now the big mistake is that guys will roll to their backs. This is cool, but Coach Beamer can just sit up on me. Takes away the whole move. So, we want to make sure that when we're doing it, we're staying on our side. Staying on our side also gives us all the area that we need to pull our shoulder back and really break the ankle and not allow him to walk for the next 3 weeks. What's up, guys? Coach Ryan here, 10th man at Van Nuys. We're going to be going over the Darce choke today. Darce choke is an awesome choke that is, again, used at all levels of the game. It's one of those ones that you can kind of get a little sneaky with the setups. Today we're going to go over the fundamentals of how you can really get in super nice and tight. You've seen this in the UFC, used by Kendall Grove, tapped out Ellen Belcher with it. Korean Zombie has tapped out Dustin Poirier with it, and Dustin Poirier has tapped out many, many people with it. This is one of those chokes that once you get it down, you're going to be snatching it on your friends who don't know jiu-jitsu, and they're going to be like, what the hell did you do? So let's get into it. So let's break this guy down. So we're going to start with Beamer on his side. I'm going to take my right arm here, and I'm going to shoot it in between his arm, and come up around his neck, and out here. I'm going to drop my head to his back, grip my hands, and get what's called the vice grip by bringing my elbows in. It's a lot of pressure on his neck. From here, I'm going to pull him in just a little. I'm going to let go of my hands, palm on the crown. I'm going to dig this guy as deep as I can get it. From there, I'm going to grab my arm. I'm going to grab his back. I'm going to tighten everything and shrug, and get my tap.
Hey guys, Coach Beamer here. Today we're going to be going over the double leg takedown. A little history on the double leg takedown for myself. I started off with a wrestling background. Double leg was my favorite takedown. Then I transitioned over to jiu-jitsu. In late 2010, I joined Team Alder, and I was able to take my favorite takedown there over to jiu-jitsu here. You see this takedown all the time in MMA, in jiu-jitsu, in wrestling, anywhere from the lowest levels, you know, kids freestyle Greco wrestling, all the way up to the MMA championship fights. It's the most effective, it's the easiest, it's the hardest to stop. It's my favorite takedown. Here's the double leg. The most common error in a double leg takedown is exerting all your force and energy into the mat instead of to your opponent. You want to drive through him, not to him. You don't want to stop all your momentum right where you meet and make contact with him. You want to drive through him. So what most often happens is everyone would change their levels, take their penetration step, and drop and right before their opponent. And at that point, you're easily getting sprawled on, it's easy to take your back, you become vulnerable at that point. So in breakdown, what you truly want to do is you want to check your distance, you want to gauge where your opponent is at which point you take your level change to get underneath him. Right after you take your penetration step, with your toes pointed up at the sky. As soon as your toes hit the mat, your knee immediately follows thereafter, and you bring your hind leg right behind you in full speed. And you would dump. First things first, you want to check your distance with your hind arm. So with your opponent in front of you, standing in a stance, you want to do the same. You know, get a little comfortable, shoulder width apart, legs shoulder width apart, at which point you want to check his distance. You want to be about this far away. Once again, you want to check with your hind arm. You don't want to do it with your front arm because now it's his shot. It's his advantage because you have no line of defense. So check with your hind arm. You don't want to leave it out there for too long. You just want to gauge his distance, at which point you change levels, take your penetration step with your toes pointed up at the sky. You drive your toes to the ground. As soon as that happens, your knee immediately follows thereafter. So I do that. I cup both of his. I cup right behind his knee, right behind his kneecap with both arms. I take my hind leg and I post it right behind him. I want to keep my neck slightly tucked in, and I want to look into his hip bone. I want to cup with my right hand, I want to cup his knee, and I want to tear the left knee. So cup the right knee and tear the left knee while looking into his hip. You lift with your legs, you double them over. Most common mistake that everyone makes, as I explained earlier, is you drive to your opponent instead of through your opponent. So in such an instance, it would look something like this, where there's enough space for your opponent to sprawl out, move around, and do whatever he does. At this point, you become a real vulnerable opponent because he has the advantage on everything that's going on. He could front headlock and anything to that nature. So you want to drive through, not to your opponent. For example, check his distance. You want to change levels, take your penetration step, drive through, and finish. And that's the double leg takedown.
Coach Tips here, Coach Lopes. Today we're going to show you guys the hip bump, one of my favorite moves from full guard. Very necessary move from full guard. Very good move to get from full guard to mount, and very quickly. I'll show you guys how to do it right now. First thing you're going to do is break the guy's posture from guard. You have to do this with this move. You can just do it right away. Just do a telegraph. You can push you back down really easy. So you have to break them down. First thing I'm going to do, the way I like to break people down, I like to grab their elbows on the outside, and I like to pull the elbows outwards while I bring my knees to my chest. From there, I'm going to hold the head. Right here is very key because if he goes up on his terms, it's hard to time this move. But if you break him down and you hold his head, you can control how he comes up and when he comes up. You do the move on your terms. So as he's trying to fight up, and when you're ready, you're going to let go. You're going to drop your full guard, post the hand on the mat behind you, reach over his shoulder, and shoot your crotch up into his chest. Doing the hip bump from here, go to skydive, nice, safe, secure mount. Right here, we have full guard. He has good posture. We have to break his posture. Put your hands on the outside of his elbows, pull him outwards, and then bring your knees to your chest. Hold his head. You have to hold his head because if he goes up on his own terms, it's hard to time this move. So you really have to hold his head, and when you're ready to go, you let go, drop your full guard, base your hand on the mat, reach over his shoulder, shoot your crotch up into his chest, go to mount, and from mount, directly go to skydive. It's a safe way to control your mount for a little bit. Just like that. Crossing your feet, cross my feet right there, and then I'm basically have my hands out here so I can base if he's trying to sweep me. Cross your feet and skydive, and then you have your hands out here to base in case he tries to bridge and roll. You're at full guard. He has good posture. You have to break his posture. I like to grab his elbows on the outside, pull his elbows outwards, and bring your knees to your chest. You have to hold the head. If you don't hold his head and he goes up on his own terms, it's hard to time this move. So you have to really control the head and you go on your terms when you do the hip bump. So as he's fighting to get up, when you're ready, you let go of the head, drop your full guard, base his hand on the mat, reach over the shoulder, shoot your crotch up into his chest, go all the way to full mount, and then go to skydive.